this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 33 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Public Accounts. Pursuant to Standing Order 1083G and the motion adopted by the committee on October 4, 2022, the committee is meeting today to undertake a study on Report 2, Processing Disability Benefits for Veterans of the 2022 reports 1 to 4 of the Auditor General of Canada.
This is first online. I'll turn to the Department of Veterans Affairs. Paul Ledwell, Deputy Minister, joining us by video conference. Jonathan Adams, Acting Director General Finance, also by video conference. Trudy McKinnon, Acting Director General Centralized Operations Division, also by video conference. And from the Office of the Auditor General, Karen Hogan, Auditor General of Canada, Nicholas Swales, Principal, and from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Nadine Huguet, Chief Human Resources Officer, who I assume is probably joining us virtually. Is that the key? Yes, there we are. So I believe so.
That is correct.
Yes, pardon me. There's only 9 boxes and you weren't on it, but thank you very much. I appreciate it. Do you have a...
Just a little question. Did we carry out the sound tests? Because we have a lot of participants. I think so, yes. I was told that the sound tests have been done. Is there a problem? Because I'm seeing people without a headset on the screens for our interpreters. For their hearing health, I'm asking this question.
You'll probably need a headset if you have one.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I do have an external microphone which has far higher sound quality than the headset. So if that's acceptable, I'll use that. If they'd prefer I use the headset, that's I can do that. I do have one available.
If you wouldn't mind grabbing your headset, I'm told for the interpreters it is better.
Sure, no problem, Mr. Chair. I'll just use it when I'm going to be speaking because I don't
that's fine. Okay.
When I'm listening otherwise, so.
Okay. Thank you. All right then. Pardon me, excuse me. Welcome back. Nice to see you in person. You'll each have 5 minutes to make your opening statement. Ms. Hogan, we will begin with you. Nice to see you again, and you have the floor. Thank you.
Monsieur le Président, je vous remercie de cette occasion.
Mr. Chair, thank you for this opportunity to discuss our report on processing disability benefits for veterans, which was tabled in the House of Commons on May 31st, 2022. I would like to acknowledge that this hearing is taking place on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. Joining me today is Nicholas Swales, the principal who was responsible for this audit. The objective of the Veterans Affairs Canada Disability Benefits Program is to compensate veterans for the effects of service-related injuries or illnesses on their lives. Veterans include current and former members of the Canadian Armed Forces and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. We looked at whether Veterans Affairs Canada was taking appropriate action to reduce wait times for veterans to receive the disability benefits they were entitled to in order to support their families' well-being. Delays in receiving benefits may have an impact on access to care or other programs and services administered by the department. In some cases, veterans may feel a lack of respect or appreciation for themselves or for their service. Despite the department's initiatives to speed up the processing of applications for disability benefits, veterans were still waiting a long time to receive compensation for injuries sustained in their service to Canada. We found that veterans were waiting almost 10 months for a decision on a first application, which is much longer than the department's service standard.
Francophones, women and RCMP veterans had to wait longer than others. There were various reasons for the delays experienced by members of each of these groups. Of particular note, RCMP veterans waited an average of 38% longer to receive a decision on their applications than Canadian Armed Forces veterans. Part of this could be explained by the fact that the funds paid by the RCMP to Veterans Affairs Canada did not align with the volume of applications that required processing. In addition, we noted that both the funding and almost half of the employees on the team responsible for processing all applications were temporary. The department also lacked a long-term staffing plan. In recent years, Veterans Affairs Canada implemented several initiatives to try to make application processing more efficient. However, the department's data on how it processes benefit applications and the organization of this data were poor. As a result, neither our office nor the department were able to measure whether and to what extent each initiative improved efficiency and helped reduce wait times. Furthermore, the department did not always calculate wait times consistently, which meant that veterans waited longer than the department reported publicly. Overall, the impact of these shortcomings means that more work is needed to reduce wait times. Our veterans are waiting too long to receive benefits. Veterans Affairs Canada and the RCMP agreed with all 4 of our recommendations. Mr. Chair, this concludes my opening remarks. We'd be pleased to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hogan. We'll now proceed to with Veterans Affairs Canada, please. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the invitation to be with the committee here today with my colleagues and to address an issue that is of critical nature in our department's service and response to our veterans. We very much appreciate the effort that went into the Auditor General's report about the processing of disability benefits for veterans and the recommendations that came out of it. We have, as the Auditor General has just indicated, accepted all the recommendations in this report, and we are making significant improvements to address each of them. In fact, Mr. Chair, even before the report was released, Veterans Affairs had already been working on the very issues the report outlines with respect to processing times for our veterans. Before I share further improvements we've made, it is important to explain, Mr. Chair, that veteran disability benefits is a very unique aspect compared to other government benefits. Every veteran's situation is individual, and we must review every application and assess each of them carefully to ensure that the right supports are provided to our veterans. Since the audit period ended in September of 2021, the department has made some real tangible progress, most notably reducing the backlog by 41% since the end of the audit period. The backlog, Mr. Chair, is the number of applications over the service standard, our service standard of 16 weeks, 80% of the time. As of September 29th of this year, 9,687 applications were over the service standard of the total 30,725 pending. Now, we know, Mr. Chair, that these numbers are still too high, but it's a significant improvement from where they used to be. Provided intake levels remain consistent, the department expects that by June of 2023, we will meet the service standard and will have cut the number of applications waiting longer than our service standard to 5,000. As of April 1st of last year, the department updated how it defines the processing times for the purpose of its service standard. Aligned with recommendation 2, the department modified the end date calculation to include the date when a payment is actually received by the veteran, now part of our 16-week. Therefore, all turnaround times and service standard results for disability benefits reported for the fiscal year 2022-23 will represent the time between when we receive a complete application and when a payment is made to the veteran. So far in this fiscal year, 56% of disability benefits first applications have been completed within the service standard, compared to 46% in last fiscal year. Again, our objective is to get to 80% by June 2023, assuming intake remains stable. Regarding RCMP formal costing and funding, Veterans Affairs Canada and the RCMP are working to create better processes for forecasting how much it would cost our department to administer disability benefits for RCMP clients. With respect to data weaknesses, we know we have work to improve. We are already underway to better track the impact of our wait times reduction initiatives to support disability benefits processing. Importantly, Mr. Chair, as the Auditor General has indicated, the department has also made progress in addressing the turnaround times for female and Francophone veterans. From the first quarter of 2019-2020, the average turnaround time was 55 weeks. By the end of the fourth quarter of 21-22, the turnaround time was reduced to 43.5 weeks, an improvement of 11.5 weeks. Since establishing a dedicated processing team for female applications last year, the average turnaround time improved from 40 weeks to 28 weeks as of September of this year. We have closed the gap between male and female processing times, and those are now at an equivalent. Finally, we're committed to exploring options for long-term resources to help us make more timely decisions and deliver on our service standard into the future. Our efforts remain focused on maintaining the resourcing we have in place so that we can respond to our veteran clients as quickly as possible, continue our progress, and achieve our service standards for all veterans. Mr. Chair, there should be no question that our department cares deeply and respects deeply the veterans in this country and want to ensure that they and their families receive the assistance that they require through us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We'll now turn to the RCMP. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for your invitation today. The Commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Brenda Luckie, is unavailable to attend due to prior engagements. I am Nadine Huggins, the Chief Human Resources Officer of the RCMP, and I respectfully acknowledge that since I'm in Ottawa today, I'm greeting you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Nation. I assumed the position of CHRO in May of 2022, and I'm honored to support the important and demanding work our members perform to serve communities and keep Canadians safe. I joined the RCMP leadership team in 2020 to lead the development of our people management modernization agenda, which includes improving services to our veterans and our current members. I welcome this opportunity to speak with you about the report of the Auditor General of Canada related to the processing of disability benefits for veterans that was tabled in May of 2022. The RCMP was a participant in this audit and welcomes the recommendations. The RCMP's relationship with Veterans Affairs Canada is long-standing. Veterans Affairs Canada provides the RCMP with benefits administration services that includes processing, adjudicating, paying, and providing other support services, such as transition interviews and case management services to eligible RCMP clients. VAC is a key partner in the delivery of our disability benefits program. In 2013 to 2014, RCMP clients represented only 10% of Veteran Affairs Canada's client base. Currently, there are approximately 22,000 veteran and active members or their survivors who receive disability or survivor benefits through VAC. This represents 21% of the Veteran Affairs Canada's client base. Veteran Affairs Canada processes almost 16,000 applications for on-duty injuries submitted by RCMP members or veterans each year. They also process RCMP member applications on other special allowances, such as the exceptional incapacity, clothing, and attendance allowances. These allowances are important to support our permanently disabled members who require additional care and treatment. Our members and employees are at the core of our organization. Our members serve communities and protect Canadians at the municipal, provincial, territorial, federal, and international levels. Member responsibilities include preventing and investigating crime, maintaining peace and order, and contributing to national security. Our members strive to serve with dignity and respect and risked their safety in the delivery of that service. And as we know this week, in their lives as well. We recognize and value the work and commitment of our members. And if they are injured in the line of duty, we want to ensure that they and their survivors receive eligible benefits in a timely manner to support their well-being. Over the last 2 years, the RCMP has been working closely with Veteran Affairs Canada to enhance governance and implement more robust processes to support forecasting financial requirements related to disability benefits. The RCMP and Veterans Affairs Canada are working collaboratively to ensure that benefit payments continue uninterrupted for eligible members and veterans. Our members are individuals who face unique situations in the performance of their duties, and the response by Veterans Affairs Canada must also be individualized. We fully support a focus on efficiency and on ensuring that our members and veterans received a thorough assessment of their needs and that benefits and supports that they require are put into place. In closing, I'd like to reinforce that the RCMP is committed to collaborating and working in partnership with Veterans Affairs Canada to address the recommendations from the Office of the Auditor General. We will continue to strengthen the oversight of our disability benefits program for our members and our veterans and their dependents. We are committed to ensuring that those who continue to serve, those who have served, and their survivors have the support they need to maintain their well-being. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. So we have a fair bit to get through today, so I'm going to begin right away. Turning to Mr. Richards, you have the floor for 6 minutes for your questioning. Please begin.
Thank you. I wanted to start with the Auditor General's office today, but I listened to Mr. Ledwell, the Deputy Minister, and I couldn't help but note, like, we've just heard a pretty damning report and testimony from the Auditor General in terms of the service standards, but we've not only seen that from the Auditor General, we've seen that from the Veterans Affairs Committee of Parliament, we've seen that from the Veterans Ombudsman, we've seen that from the PBO. It just seems to go on and on and on. The reports that are coming out, just absolutely condemning the service standards we're seeing at Veterans Affairs, particularly over the last 7 years. I heard a lot of, well, we're trying to do a little better and that kind of stuff, and great. But I really think that when it comes to providing service, our veterans, the service and the sacrifice that they have provided to this country, they deserve the utmost consideration. They deserve the utmost respect. And I just have to ask Mr. Ledwell, does the performance of this department currently seem to you like showing veterans the level of service that they deserve, the kind of respect that they deserve? I just didn't hear any of that in your statement. Do you not have some shame and some embarrassment as to the performance of this department when you hear all these kinds of damning allegations about terrible service and data that seems to be, in disrepair, staffing levels? Like, do you not have any feeling of shame or embarrassment about the performance of this department and a desire to do much, much better?
Mr. Chair, if I could, and I very much accept and appreciate the question from the honourable member. I don't share shame. I share a challenge. I share the absolute underlining that we are here to provide care and respect to our veterans, one by one, not just in large number, but one by one to each veteran that comes forward to us seeking that interest. This is an issue that has been faced in this department for some time, and we've tackled this issue and we have made progress. I think I've underlined that in some of the early remarks, but we have made significant progress. Is it good enough? No, it's not good enough. We are not at the service standard that we have established ourselves in relation to what's important to meet and to support the veterans that come forward.
Okay.
Are we confident that we will get there? Yes. Yes, we are confident that we will get there with the resources that we have at play now. And importantly, member, if I could say, not just to meet that standard, but to maintain that standard. And that's absolutely critical and consequential.
Well, I certainly hope that you can find a way to live up to that, because this is what we're seeing now is completely unacceptable. And I probably will have some more questions for you, Mr. Ledwell. But I do want to just gather a bit more information from the Auditor General, and I don't know if it's appropriate to ask questions of Mr. Swales. I understand you were the one working on the audit directly. I would be happy to do that. If the Auditor General herself wishes to answer, that's fine too. But I guess where I wanted to start was what we're hearing is obviously over the last 7 years in particular, this department has failed to meet its service standards. Talking about 16 weeks is kind of the standard that they have for processing. What you've identified here is a median of about 39 weeks. But I note that is from the point when the application is considered complete. So once there's been some back and forth potentially between the veteran and the workers in Veterans Affairs, and I guess what I want to ask is, what is the actual length of time from when a veteran is submitting an application? I noted in your report that you talk about something here, where we're looking at probably 48 weeks being sort of the actual length of time once we add in the amount of time that's being taken for that sort of consideration of an application being complete. Is that correct, or what length of time when you add that portion in is the average processing time for a case? And what would be some of the longest times that we're seeing in terms of processing? Because obviously 48 weeks or 39 or anything like that is far from being acceptable. But what would some of the longest cases be?
Mr. Richards, I'm just going to interrupt you because we're down to about 40 seconds. So the Auditor General's office has the floor.
Thank you.
Question, you absolutely can ask questions of Nick, and he'll gladly jump in. The 48 weeks, you're right, is when we factored in the time that happens after a decision is made. So once a decision is made on eligibility, that's when the severity of a claim is determined, then a payment happens. So the difference between the median of 39 and 48 is when we factored that additional time in. But I'll turn to Nick to talk to you about some of the longer times that we saw.
Mr. Swales, I'm going to have to come back to you on that. So just hold that questions. I believe Mr. Richards has another round, so he's welcome to either start it with you or go to another question. But I'm going to have to suspend that right there. Mr. Fragascatos, you have the floor for 6 minutes, please. Over to you.
Chair, thank you very much, and thank you to all witnesses for being here today. I did want to also ask Mr. Ledwell to begin with. Sir, thank you for your work. I know it's not an easy job, and we appreciate your openness and candor coming before the committee. I simply want to look at some key recommendations from the Auditor General, and if you could, because they have been agreed to by Veterans Affairs, if you could give an update to this committee as to where things are. So recommendation 2.31, and I'll simply read it into the record. Veterans Affairs Canada and the RCMP should work together to establish a formal costing process and determine the right level of funding needed for processing applications from RCMP veterans in a timely manner. I will ask you, Mr. Ledwell, where we are on that, and I'll ask Miss, excuse me, I can't see the last name there, Miss Swales, her thoughts as well.
Thank you very much for the question. And as I think both Ms. Huggins and I have indicated, we are working very closely and collaboratively in this. In fact, we have a joint oversight committee that began its work before the report came out. to address this matter and to bring forward the costing considerations so that we can properly address these matters. As Ms. Huggins indicated, we've seen a spike, really a large increase in the number of applications coming forward from former RCMP members, and it's critical that we not only have the means in place to be able to address these, but the understanding in place so that we're properly responding to the interests and the considerations of those former RCMP officers who have served and have come forward looking for support and disability support in particular. We are working now on that costing, and I can tell you that that will be coming forward in short order, so that we can properly consider not just how we respond to this immediately, but how we sustain a response to this for the next several years. And that is underway. We will have that in place by March of 2023.
Thank you.
And Mr. Fragascato, was the next question from Ms. Huggins?
Yes, it's Ms. Huggins, yes.
It's yes. Pardon, Ms. Huggins. I thought it was Eugene when you first came on. So, Ms. Huggins, you have the floor to answer the question.
Thank you very much for the question. All I can do is echo my colleague, Mr. Ledwell. We are working quite diligently at senior levels within the organization to make sure that we are paying attention and doing a better job of forecasting what the cost of the program will be. And as he mentioned, we do expect that towards the end of the fiscal year, we will have an opportunity to have some better line of sight on that costing framework going forward. Thank you.
No, and I want to look at another recommendation, the one that follows, and it reads at 2.36, to provide useful waiting time information for veterans. Veterans Affairs Canada should review the end date it uses to calculate the period under the service standard so that it can report consistently and accurately on its performance against this standard. Mr. Ledwell, where are we there?
We have made that adjustment, honourable member, and as I indicated in my early and opening comments, one issue that we have addressed, and it has been in place since the beginning of this fiscal year, since the 1st of April, is the calculation of the time includes the actual receipt of payment by the veteran. So that has been factored in. That was a very specific consideration and recommendation that was brought forward through the audit report, and that has been affected and is already at play. We have updated our standard as well, so that consistently going forward, beginning this fiscal year, we will see a clearer, a tightened, a more transparent standard that we can not only reflect internally, including not just within the department, but across government, but most importantly, report on and be transparent with our veteran community so that they understand how we are doing on their behalf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How much time do I have?
About a minute and a half, sir.
Okay. Finally, at 2.52, the recommendation reads that Veterans Affairs Canada should address the weaknesses in the quality and organization of its data. This would allow the department to better monitor the disability benefits program and use the data to inform decision-making about efficiency improvements. Mr. Ledwell, where are we there?
So, honourable member, we've taken a number of initiatives around this, acknowledging that that data is an area that we need to improve, both in terms of our understanding, our use, and then its application. We've created a data stewards committee. Through the work of our Chief Digital Officer, we've identified objectives with respect to this program to ensure that we are tracking the right data, that we are reporting on that data, and that we're reflecting on the impact of the work that's being done in a consistent manner. So this is an area that we've taken very, very seriously. And we will have more to report on this after this fiscal year and each and every fiscal year that is ahead of us.
Thank you very much.
That's about it. You got 10 seconds?
10 seconds? Well, no, I don't think I can fit anything in there.
No, it'd be
Not
tough.
even Kelly McCauley could do that, so that's fine.
Very good. Et maintenant, la députée.
Now the floor goes to Ms. Sinclair de Gagné. You have the floor for 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also would like to thank the witnesses who are here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a good timing for this important topic. So, at the outset, we have to say that the situation is dire. It's quite catastrophic to see the treatment that our veterans in general are subject to. But in addition to that, within the service, there are disparities that are abhorrent. I don't think this will surprise anyone that I will be asking a lot of questions about the fact that Francophones are having to wait a lot more than English speakers. So let's go back in history. In 2018, a report was tabled responding to expectations of veterans blessed in Canada. So in that report, it was stated that Francophones and women waited a lot more, and the difference was arbitrary and unfounded. In 2016-2017 fiscal year, the average timing for Francophones was 47 weeks and 24 weeks for English speakers. So at that point, according to Mr. Harris, the parity between Anglophones and Francophones should be achieved by the end of 2021. We're at the end of 2022, so a year passed. There's another report that is even more damning than the report of the Auditor General, that goes to say also that no progress has been made, the financing, the efforts, everything going into this. Despite all of this, we are still seeing a disparity, a significant gap between services received by Anglophones and Francophones. So first question goes to Deputy Minister of Veterans Affairs Canada. What are you going to do to rectify the situation as quickly as possible?
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much for the question. You are right to bring up this topic. This is the situation has been before us for months and years now. What we have done is we established units dedicated to these specific questions. So we have dedicated more staff to process the applications by Francophone veterans, and we are hoping to achieve results on that front. We still have a lot more to do, of course, and the same exact situation applies to applications made by women. So we have created units, again, to process these applications made by women, female veterans, and we are aiming, of course, equality between men and women when it comes to their applications. So same objectives. We have the same objectives for Francophones and Anglophones, and I fully agree with you. This is absolutely something we have to rectify, and we are taking the steps to do that. We have seen some progress already, but there is more work to be done. A follow-up question. How do you measure the improvement in processing times, because the data and the indicators have been shown to be insufficient? So what are you going to do to improve these so that we have the right processing times for veterans? So this is very similar to a question previously asked. This question came up during the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. So we started this fiscal year we started to work on this particular topic this fiscal year, and we will be reporting on the progress every year, and we will be using the same indicator for processing times in every single report. And we have achieved an improvement of almost 10 weeks for Francophones. It's not enough, but it's already a good start. There is, again, a lot more work to be done. We are really concentrated on fixing this problem. 1 minute. Okay, perfect. Okay, next question will be to the Office of the Auditor General. In your report, you're saying that initial first applications of Francophones are processed in 4 to 6 weeks, whereas for Anglophones, it's 26 weeks. So what recommendations can you come up with? And I was surprised that there aren't really many recommendations on this difference, but what recommendations would you want to address to the department so that the processing times and the applications of Francophones are improved? We have not issued a targeted recommendation on Francophone applications, really, because we are seeing a need for the improvement of all processing times for all applications. There are certain reasons why some processing times are longer, but the recommendation I would issue would be to simply identify choke points in the system. Once these are identified, then you'd be in a position to start working on improvements. Initially, we said that, well, there's a lot of activity, a lot of work going into improving processing times, but the department wasn't really in a position to know whether these activities had increased or decreased the processing times. So first of all, they have to be able to understand where the choke points in the system are and then target their activities accordingly. And this to be followed by a step to see whether the steps have improved it. Okay. Mr. Desjardins, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank all the witnesses who are both present with us in the room and present online. This is a pretty timely moment for us coming towards Remembrance Day, and I want to thank my colleague, the previous speaker from the bloc, who mentioned the realities facing Francophone communities and veterans. I think it's an important aspect that my colleagues made and a differentiation that I think is important to deliver that respect and that quality of service to those veterans. In a similar vein, I am disappointed to see that there is a lack of mention of Indigenous veterans. I know the Deputy Minister knows about this fact, and I know my colleagues have spoken directly with the Deputy Minister on the realities facing Indigenous veterans. And for the sake of Canadians understanding what Indigenous veterans are going through, you know, colleagues in this room of mine, particularly my colleagues from Edmonton, know that it's predominantly Indigenous veterans who are accessing the Veterans Food Bank in Edmonton right now. That is a reality. I also was part of the settlement in 2016 on behalf of Métis veterans. The Deputy Minister, I remember, we sought to relieve Métis veterans who weren't even getting payment for their service in World War II. That's the condition. This is the same ministry that failed to give payment for their service of Métis veterans, my family members, who would die without their payment for their service to this country. And to think about the reality that Indigenous people would have to even put their lives on the line, the remarkable show of courage and strength that they demonstrate in their own lives to just survive the catastrophe that's been our people's experience here, and then to do all that and enlist and join Canadians and fight side by side to then be denied these really basic services. It's a shame, and Indigenous veterans deserve better. They deserve to be seen, and they deserve to be studied and understood and listened to. We're not even there yet. It's nice to see that Francophones and women and other groups who are important to this study have access to that data. We're invisible. Indigenous people's experiences in Canadian veterans is invisible. That's a heartbreak, and I'm certain every member of this committee feels the same way. It's unacceptable. When the government has asked that we take a whole-of-government approach to reconciliation, and the fact that our veterans don't even have this basic access to even know where they are on the queue, even our Auditor General's office fails to make mention of this failure. This is a difficult position we're at right now. And so if I can do anything is to leave the witnesses with the impression of how important this work is and how we all have a responsibility, even at the Auditor General's office, to understand what's not here. I was pleased to see that there was, a GBA, a gender-based analysis plus review in this, and with women veterans and Francophone veterans, but I hope you understand the severity and the importance of Indigenous veterans to this country and the role Indigenous veterans can play in our bringing together and unity of this country. The more we continue to neglect the fact that Indigenous veterans aren't even seen, they aren't even the ministry is not even collecting data, we can't even ask questions and hold the government accountable as to when Indigenous veterans or if Indigenous veterans are even getting benefits. You'd think that would be something the Auditor General's report would say, but it lacks that clarity. The closest we come is to section recommendation 2.52, where there's addressing weaknesses in the quality of organization of this data, but it needs to be far more specific. So my question to the Deputy Minister, knowing these things, and you've been informed of this for a long time, what efforts is your ministry doing to ensure that you collect Indigenous-related data?
Honourable Member, thank you so much for this question. And you're quite right to underline this issue, something that we are, in fact, attentive to. And I should say that there is a long history of Indigenous Canadians who have served and have sacrificed. And even just a few days ago, we saw the unveiling of a Canada Post stamp honoring Tommy Prince and his service to his country. Something that is really quite remarkable. And there's so many stories like his that we need to recognize, we need to commemorate, and we need to take up in terms of our understanding and our addressing of issues with respect to Indigenous veterans. Recently, and for the first time in 50 years, the census asked a question, an identifier about veterans. So for the first time since 1971, we have data from through our national census identifying veterans. And within that, I should say, Honourable Member, we've been able to identify that there are in excess of 23,000 Indigenous veterans who have self-identified as part of that census data. That gives us a clear and a rich understanding. And it's not just enough, though, to understand the numbers and the population and the community that we're dealing with, but to actually engage. So we as a department have been engaging through the Métis National Council, through the AFN, through local councils to really understand, appreciate, and better serve our Indigenous veterans. And this is a matter that will be of great priority to us. It is of great priorities. It will be increasingly great priority. And I really look forward to engaging with you and with others to see how we can better represent, how we can better serve, and how we can better appreciate Indigenous Canadians who have served in uniform.
Thank you very much. That expires the time. Turning now to the second round, I'm going to go back to Mr. Richards. Mr. Richards, you can either take the microphone or you can turn things right over to Mr. Swale and allow him to answer your question. It is your option, but I just wanted to flag that you did have that question to him, which went unanswered in the first round. So over to you, sir, for either comments or direction.
Yeah, thank you. And I am going to go to Mr. Swales, but just quickly first. So the way I had understood what we learned in the first round of questioning I had, what we're actually talking about here from the time a veteran puts their first application in until they actually receive a decision, we're talking about on a median 48 weeks, 11 months, almost a whole year for veterans to get a decision, which is frankly appalling. And that's why I wanted to ask Mr. Swales about that's the median. What's the worst of the worst? Because I mean, I don't even know if I even want to know actually how, because 48 weeks is completely unacceptable. What is the longest of the long?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the reason we used median is that when we used average, we got some numbers that didn't represent a really typical experience, because at the long tail, there are very long, there are applications that have been there for a very long time, 10 years or more. Now, we had some doubts about whether those applications were perfectly correct data-wise, but if you look at Exhibit 2.4, you can see at the long end, the right-hand side, you're looking at 89 weeks before you hit that 80% level. So you're starting to talk about applications that are closing in on 2 years. and there's 20-odd% of them in the data when we looked at it. So there's a very long tail in that data.
Okay. Well, as I said, I really almost didn't want to know, and maybe I didn't, but I'm glad you've enlightened us on that, because it's just absolutely unacceptable. Can you tell us a little bit? I mean, maybe you can shed some light on here. I note that it was clear in a number of cases in the report that the standard that's been published on the website, that 16 weeks, 80% of the time, hasn't been met for 7 years, which happens to coincide with the exact amount of time that the current government's been in power. I guess I look at that and wonder, is there something I'm missing here? Is there something else that changed 7 years ago other than the government that would have caused a lack of ability to meet the service standards? And as far as anything you've seen?
Is that to Mr. Swales again?
That's to Mr. Swales.
Yes.
Yep.
Of time was the number of applications increasing substantially. So we mention in the report that in the first 5 years of that period, essentially, the number of first applications increased by 75%. So there were some changes in the parameters that were being dealt with by the department.
Okay, so they did have more applications coming in, but just weren't able to find ways to deal with them, is essentially what we're talking about here. Can you maybe shed a little bit of light on the last couple of years in particular? Veterans Affairs, and this may be something, if you can't answer, I'll ask Mr. Ledwell if he has the information on. But I know at the minimum, some of the Veterans Affairs employees were working from home over the last couple of years. I'm not sure if you did any look at this in terms of the numbers of the percentages of employees that are working from home versus in their offices. Both 2020, 2021, and then currently. And if you noticed any difference in productivity in terms of the number of cases being processed by an employee during that period of time, was there challenges that were faced based on employees working from home in order to process applications that would have led to longer waiting times, or was that part of your study at all?
Mr. Swales, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, we didn't look at that level of granularity, if I could put it that way. We didn't look at the productivity of individual staff. I will say that it's not obvious to us in the data that there was.
So sorry if I can just interrupt you for if I can interrupt you for 1 second. I guess I'm not asking you whether you looked at individual staff, but I mean, obviously there would be some ability to know the percentage of people who are working from home. Do you have any of those kind of numbers? And if not, maybe Mr. Ledwell would. And I'm just curious whether we noticed any drop in productivity, because I wonder if that helps to explain some of this.
We didn't look at that in detail. It might be better to ask Mr. Ledwell.
Okay. Mr. Ledwell, would you have any? Would you be able to tell us, looking back at 2020, 2021, and then currently, what percentage of employees would be working from home versus in the office, and whether you've noticed a drop in productivity at all?
A very brief answer, please, Mr. Ledwell. I might have to come back to you on that if it's lengthy.
Okay, I was just going to say then, Mr. Chair, if I could, that the productivity hasn't dropped. In fact, productivity has increased.
Thank you.
The number of files that have been addressed.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That was nice and short. Merci beaucoup. Turning now to Ms. Bradford. You have the floor virtually for 5 minutes, please. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for attending today. Okay, so I'm going to address these questions to the Deputy Minister, please. If you had to choose one thing that the Veterans VAC could focus on, which would have the highest impact on reducing the wait times for veterans, what would it be?
It's a very good question. I think that the item that I most focus on is how do we make this process as direct and simple for both the veteran and for the staff who are responding to the veteran's interest as it's brought forward. So we've been placing a lot of focus on simplifying our application forms, of being more digital. We've got an increasing number of veterans who use something called My VAC account, which means that a lot of the documentation that they're bringing forward as part of their applications can be submitted digitally. That means that the applications are more complete, and we have all the material. Our staff have all the material to be able to review that and to ensure that the decision is consistent with the need of the veteran. So that's the area I think that both in terms of making it direct and simple for the veteran, digital in form, and easier for our employees to make sure that the veterans' interests are met through that.
Okay, can you please tell us about the announcement of $140 million to extend the VAC staff by an additional 2 years, which was made after the time period you conducted your audit? What effect do you see this having on the backlog?
And thank you for the question. It has had tremendous impact on the backlog. As we had indicated earlier, since the time of the audit, we've seen the backlog decrease by 41%. That is largely due to the work and the effort of the staff that are addressing these matters and taking up the applications as they've come forward for the veteran. Particularly staff, and I've got my colleague Trudy McKinnon here who oversees this operation, staff who are very well versed in the issues that the veteran is bringing forward. So they're able to provide the insight, make the decisions, and ensure that the veteran is getting the level of support and the type of support that veteran requires. If it's okay, member, I might just ask my colleague to comment on that because she works very closely with these individuals.
Okay.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you, Deputy, and thank you for the question, Ms. Bradford. As the Deputy noted, certainly the impact of that has been significant. We've seen a reduction in the backlog of over 41% since the audit. In addition to that, we've seen a backlog reduction of just over 50%. If you look at the when we hired those people in the first place, which was in March of 2020, we received the money to do that hiring. I will also say that one of our biggest challenges has been the term resources and attrition as a result of term resourcing. And so with the extension of those resources to the end of 2024, we're confident that we will be able to stem some of that attrition that naturally happens when we're talking about term resources. And that makes a big difference because those staff have been trained, they understand our systems, they understand our processes, and they continue to increase their productivity. In fact, we are currently year to date meeting our service standard 56% of the time, whereas last fiscal year we were meeting it 46% of the time. And so we're seeing a sustained incremental progress in all fronts, whether it's the backlog, whether it's meeting the service standard, or whether it's attrition. And so that additional funding was certainly, had a big impact on the department and on our ability to continue processing the claims in a timely manner.
Okay, one more question. The Auditor General indicated that one of the problems was that there was a lack of a long-term staffing plan. Can you tell me what actions are being taken to deal with the long-term staffing situation so you won't have these, temporary workers just, coming on for a finite period of time?
Yes, and so as the Deputy noted, I'll reiterate that we certainly agree not only with the findings, but the recommendations of the Auditor General. And with regards to staffing, we have been in a cycle of term funding now since 2018 and receiving 2-year term funding for these resources. And as I've noted, it causes significant attrition as we get to the end of those terms. It becomes quite challenging not only with our English resources, but also our French resources, who are in very high demand across the federal government, but also in the private sector. And so as we start to look at what we need going forward, we will be partnering with our colleagues at the RCMP to develop a long-term strategy to address this resourcing issue and to put options forward to look at longer-term, more permanent funding to keep the trained resources that we have on staff.
And thank you very much. That is the time. Madame Singh.
Ms. Sinclair Degania, you have the floor for 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will continue with a follow-up to my previous question to the Auditor General. You mentioned choke points. Now, when it comes to one of the major choke points, I think one you have outlined or identified is data. Data collected by the department when it comes to the service delivery and organization of its data is mediocre. Mediocre is a strong term in this sense. So according to your report, the department is not capable of collecting the statistics correctly. So should we think, or are there any indicators that the situation has improved or is improving? Well, once somebody identifies a shortcoming in your data, while it is clear that you can take the steps to rectify the situation, the shortcoming with data, what we observed was that in certain cases there were errors, probably. For instance, there was a file that had been in the system for 10 years. I would hope that this is human error, that it's not truly the case, but this data has to be verified. So once this initial observation has been made, you have to take steps and follow up to see whether you're improving your processes. It's not just the organization of data on files, but how this is all organized and all the new measures that have been introduced, just to see if these are helping to improve the processes. I have another question to the Deputy Minister. Over the short term, what are your objectives to see the improvements, to follow up on the improvements? Well, we will be focused on the data internally and externally, and have standards that are consistent. I don't want to really interrupt, but do you have a clear number when it comes to your objectives with wait times? You mentioned 16 weeks. When will you achieve these performance targets? Do you have a deadline? As I said in my opening remarks, we are aiming for June 2023. So June next year. By that time, we will meet our objectives. Excellent. Perfect. Thank you so much. We'll be following up on that.
Desjardins, you have the floor for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to continue on my last line of questioning related to the lack of Indigenous data and the lack of understanding about the conditions of Indigenous veterans in our country. So I'd like to address this question finally with the Deputy Minister. You gave me a number. It was 23,000 Indigenous veterans collected by Stats Canada. So I'm glad to know that Stats Canada is doing this work, but we need to know what Veterans Affairs is doing about this. 23,000 Indigenous veterans were identified. What is the wait time?
Thanks very much for the question, and we can't give you the specific answer on the wait time with respect to Indigenous veterans. We're very respectful of the fact that Indigenous veterans come forward, Indigenous Canadians come forward and self-identify. So this data that we have received through the census has only been received by us in the last 2 months.
Thank you for that. I think that's all. I just have my limited time here. Now I want to focus on how we can actually make this better. This is an obvious gap, and you agree, Deputy Minister, about that gap. It's shocking to me that the Auditor General's Office hasn't included this. This is a tool of the government and for Canadians to actually make this happen, and it's something that you've known about for years. You know, in my own correspondence in my former life, we've informed Veterans Affairs of this lack of data collection for a very long time. The Auditor General's Office is supposed to ensure that this happens, that folks don't fall through the cracks. And this happens numerous times over and over and over. There's no Indigenous perspective within the Auditor General's Office, and this continues to hurt Canadians. It's continuing to hurt our ability to have reconciliation. It's continuing our ability to actually treat Indigenous veterans like they're valuable, like Indigenous people are valuable, like this government cares, like the Auditor General's Office cares. We need to actually demonstrate those things. Would the Auditor General or the principal like to comment on why this really critical piece of information wasn't included, and ways that the Auditor General's office is actually going to include Indigenous perspectives moving forward. This is a valuable question, I think, for Indigenous people, for me myself. I'm going to stay on this committee, and you're going to get it again.
Little time to answer. I know you want an answer.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Absolutely. I believe in this case, your point's taken that we didn't specifically mention Indigenous peoples as a recommendation, but we looked at their application of the gender-based analysis plus process, and they're really at the beginning of the plus side. And that's why one of our recommendations was about doing that. You're thinking about all of the data you need to gather. You actually have to gather information on Indigenous service members in order to be able to have it to feed into tailoring your responses and so on. But the point of the
But you got to say that in your report.
Thank you.
You got to say that.
Very, very much. I appreciate it. You'll have another chance, Mr. Desjardins, and I know you will use it efficiently. Turning to Mr. McCauley now. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Lidwell, you were talking about the 80% processing goal. When was the last time Veterans Affairs achieved that goal?
That's a very good question, honourable member, and I can't give you that specifically, but I will find that and bring that back to the committee. Great. I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Richards' question. You mentioned productivity is up with people staying at home. I'm looking at GC Infobase from the Treasury Board. The increase in FTEs for the VA is up. I think it's 35% more staff than 2017. 30% are French, so there is that difference there. But 35% more staff since 2017. You've said increased productivity by having them work from home. How do we end up with such a pathetic service to our veterans then? How do you reconcile that? Well, two things I would say. First of all, this staff is being productive. And the increase in the total FTEs is in fact. Let me interrupt you there. We've added over 1/3 staffing from 2017, so you've got 1/3 more people. You've just told us productivity is up, so that maybe it should add 40-50% service. How are things so bad if we've added so many bodies and you've stated productivity is up? So that the key part of that, honourable member, as was indicated earlier, is that the intake, the demand, is up significantly. So for a 5-year period that began in 2015, the intake, the demand was up by 75%. Do you require a 1% increase in the amount of bodies for every increased percent in uptake? I don't think that is the way that we would compute this. We are looking at the total equivalent that we need, not just in terms of the number of bodies, but the type of bodies that we need to address these matters. Okay, I'm going to move on. I do have a question, though. I'd like maybe you can get back to. We'll come back to it. It's obviously been a long time since we've hit the 80% goal, because you cannot even recall when last time we did. So this has been an ongoing problem. We've added the bodies. Again, I'm just stunned we are stuck with such horrible service to our veterans. I'm looking at your departmental results for the last year, and VA achieved 18% of their goals. That was for the 2021 departmental results that came out. And yet at the same time, taxpayers paid out $1.66 million in bonuses. 98% of the executives, which I assume yourself as well, received bonuses for achieving 18% of your targets on top of these horrific service results to our veterans. How do you justify that? Do you think that's proper? Well, I should say, honourable member, that I'm new to this department and new to this government, so I honestly can't. Do you believe that your predecessors then? Like, how does your department justify that with 18%? Let me ask you, the departmental results for the last year have not been released yet. They have been finalized, and I know they have been submitted to Treasury Board. I know that Minister McCauley has signed off on them. What percentage of results were achieved for last year? I don't have that in front of me, honourable member, and the departmental results are still being worked on. So
they're not still being worked on, because I know they have been submitted already. They've been signed off and submitted to the Treasury Board because they're being released very shortly. Let me get to your departmental plans for this year. You know, Peter Drucker's famous for the line, you know, you can't approve what you can't measure. I'm looking at your departmental plans, which you set out your goals for the coming year, mostly to justify in the estimates process funding from the government. And I see such things in your plans as goals for UN, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, sustainable cities, how many people visit your website, but there's not a single goal related to achieving that 80% target. How in the world is this possible? We know it's a problem, but we've set a goal for how many people will visit a website, but not a service standard for our veterans.
Well, I can tell you, Honourable Member, that this is our top priority.
No. If it was, it would be in your departmental plans. In what world would we set a goal for United Nations Sustainable Goals,
excuse me,
but
Mr.
not
Colley,
serving our veterans?
Your time has elapsed, but I know I'm coming back to you, so you can take it up on your next round. Turning now to Mr. Dong, who's joining us online. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I want to thank the witness for joining us today. Listening to the testimony and Q&A, I try really hard to figure out what is causing the backlog. I remember under the previous government's, I think it's called a Deficit Reduction Action Plan, there was 9 Veterans Affairs office closed. So to Mr. Letwell, I just want to know if how many of these 9 offices are reopened, or if were any new office be established in the last under this government or in the last 7 years.
Thank you very much for the question. And we have reopened all of those offices. We have a presence in all parts of this country, which is very important, that we are located close to where our veterans are living, and we can relate to them, not just in person, but also virtually in terms of what they are faced with in their own local circumstances. And that's very much a part of what we do. We have across this country 38 unique Veterans Affairs Canada offices. We also have 32 centers that work affiliated with military bases on transition. And we've got 20 occupational stress injury clinics that exist from coast to coast. And it's these elements that are really important in terms of our presence and our ability to respond to the needs and interests of veterans in those local areas.
So all of these units that you just mentioned, 9 new offices being opened. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Okay. So service capacity has increased, but there is still a backlog we're facing. So I'm trying to understand, why is that? Is it because there was a significant increase in the overall clientele base, you know, in terms of personnel? There are a lot more people that you have to serve. Is that the case?
That is the case. So as indicated earlier, 75% increase in demand in the 5 years beginning in 2015.
I see.
So a very, very significant increase. And I should say as well, Honourable Member, an increase in the complexity of issues and demands coming forward from our veterans, particularly around mental health issues, significantly around PTSD related mental health issues.
Okay. Can I interpret that as the overall size of the force has increased to meet the targets, or to meet the goals to serve Canadians and serve our missions domestically and internationally?
That is the case, and there are more veterans every year who are releasing from active service.
Okay.
And that increases the number of potential that could come forward with an application to Veterans Affairs Canada.
Okay, that's important. And I also noticed that our annual budget has increased by, I think, $2 billion per year compared to previous government. And can you tell the committee what percentage of that $2 billion or additional fund has been used towards benefit payments to veterans in Canada?
So it's important to note that of our entirety of our entire budget, greater than 90% of that goes out into the hands and the pockets of veterans and their families. It is to support them, and that's very much at the heart of what we do, of course. So that increase that you're referencing has translated into significant benefit and support increase for our veterans wherever they are.
So less than 10% is used in the administration of those payments. Okay, that's good to know, and I think it's good for the public to know. Now, I noticed that in your previous comment, you talked about the discrepancy between male and female wait times. And I think my colleague also asked the Anglophone and Francophone wait times. Why is that? Can you comment on this? Can you explain to us why the discrepancy?
I think on the male and female, there are some conditions, and we've really done some work and continue to do some work to ensure that our benefits profile, including our table of benefits, is brought into the modern age, and it reflects women who served as well as men who served. Much of that table of benefits goes back decades, and it was written at a time when overwhelmingly our Canadian Armed Forces were made up of men. That's obviously has changed. We've got 16% of Canadian Armed Forces now that are women. So that has been changed in our table of benefits. But we've also put in place units to really ensure that issues that are very specific to women and issues that are very specific and applications that might come forward from Francophones are there to address and attend to those matters.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dong. I'm afraid that is your time. I actually gave you a little extra because I wanted to hear the answer. I thought that was an interesting round. Turning now is our third round. It's going to be slightly abridged, but Ms. Shanahan, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that you do get a couple minutes. Turning now back to Mr. McCauley, we're about to launch into an exchange with the Deputy Minister. The floor is yours again, so I don't know if it was his turn or your turn, but you have the floor.
Yeah, Mr. Ledwell, would you provide, you commented about increased productivity despite people working from home. Would you provide that data and the backup for that to this committee, please, so we're more familiar? There's been a fair amount of lapsed funding over the last several years. Is any of the delays in servicing and providing service to our veterans caused by funding? Because there was a comment about misalignment between the Veteran Affairs and RCMP. When we talk about misaligned, are we talking about, well, funding's approved in estimates, but not for this item? Could you expand on that very briefly?
Sure, if I could, honourable member, and it's good to clarify that for supports that are provided to veterans, to those who have served in the Canadian Armed Forces.
No, I'm sorry, specifically toward the issue with the RCMP.
And I'm getting to that, if I could. So specific to those in the Canadian Armed Forces, those funds are approved and are in place so that regardless of when they come forward, regardless of the measure, it is assured that that veteran will receive the level of benefit that they are to receive. In the case of the RCMP, it's not covered the same way. It's covered through an operational and an annual budget. So it's not through what we call a quasi-stat. It's through a
How do we change that down? How do we change that down? It seems a relative simple fix.
Well, and that's a very good question. I'd ask my colleague, Mr. Adams, who works on this regularly, to
Mr. Adams, just briefly, please.
Sure, absolutely. So in response to the question, as the deputy has highlighted, for Veterans Affairs Canada, quasi-statutory funding ensures that all veterans that appear and present with a need, there is sufficient funding for that. Right now, we are working with the RCMP, and the RCMP is also working with central agencies to look at options then of how they can.
I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop you there because I'm not really hearing an answer when we just talk about talking with and looking at options. It doesn't look like there's anything concrete to fix this. I'm going to go over to the RCMP, please. Do you have a sense of confidence with the Veterans Affairs handling of retired members? from the RCMP?
Thank you for the question. We are working very diligently.
I'm not asking. I'm sorry, ma'am.
Yes,
I'm going to interrupt.
Confidence.
Thank you.
I do
Okay.
have confidence in.
I'm going to stop you right there, please. Auditor General Hogan, can I ask you? Do you have what you've heard today? What your report has seen? The massive delays. They've accepted your recommendations. Do you have a sense of confidence that our vets will be served and these recommendations will address our very major issues?
I do believe both departments have a lot of work that they need to do. It's been over 7 years that the service standard has not been met. Based on the fact that in 2018 there was an ombuds report that raised certain matters that we have raised yet again that still exist. Some of the matters we raised in a 2014 report related to mental health applications. So I do believe that it's long past due time to act on the commitments and the recommendations. And I think the committee has heard me say this before. Many government departments are excellent at developing action plans, but it's the implementation of those that really needs to be focused on. Yeah. And I'm confident that there's goodwill in these two departments to do that. But now it's time to act on all of those commitments.
Great.
You have a minute and 10 seconds.
Great. Mr. Ledwell, what's the consequences for various folks responsible for this if we don't meet our goals, if we don't start serving our veterans, if we don't, as Mr. Desley says, about serving our Indigenous veterans or providing better French service? Is it just another Auditor General report years down the road? What's the consequences?
Honourable Member, thanks for that point. And an important issue. I think that our obligation is to serve our veterans. So our commitment is to get the support to veterans when they need it, where they need it, and in a timely fashion. And as we've indicated in both our response and in our engagement here today, we know that there's more work to do. We feel like we're on the right track. We do have action plans.
I'm going to interrupt. I just have one last real simple question. You mentioned the issue of temporary employees. Can you provide to us the amount of temporary employees that just leave, or how many temporary employees transition to indeterminate permanent employees?
So was that a request for documents?
If you have the information now, if not, would you provide it to the committee?
We'll be happy to provide that information to the committee through the clerk.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you very, very much. Turning now to Ms. Yip, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm not sure that I heard the reason why there are discrepancies between male and female applicant wait times. So I'd like to hear clearly why female applicants had to wait longer, and I'm going to direct my question to Ms. Hogan.
I know there was difficulty for us to identify all the reasons. As I mentioned, the three groups, Francophones, women, and RCMP veterans, all had different reasons. When it came to women, we were able to identify at least two measures. Mr. Ledwell was talking to one earlier on about the lack of information about how certain conditions impact female veterans is still missing. And so figuring out the determination of the severity and the amount of a benefit takes longer for women. The other matter that we saw was that it was actually identified initially by the department through part of their GBA Plus analysis, was that their application forms didn't allow for you to include a different name. And many women, more than women, would have changed their names throughout their career in service. And so if you happen to enter into or exit a marriage while you were in service, there was difficulty in matching your medical records, your service records with different names, and that led to partially the increase in time for processing of women.
You first mentioned the severity for women in terms of the longer wait times. Could you just elaborate on that, please?
It's about the conditions and how a female service member experiences a condition, and then the amount of benefits that they would be eligible to receive. I believe that Mr. Ledwell's much better placed to explain that than I would be, but that was one of the reasons. It was the sort of that impact that certain conditions have on women versus male service members.
Well, could you please elaborate on that?
And if I could, Honourable Member, I'll ask my colleague, Trudy McKinnon, to address this issue.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you, Honourable Member. In terms of the gap that we see between male and female veterans when they come forward, the Deputy and the Auditor General have pointed out correctly the biggest issue that we face in that how military service impacts women veterans is oftentimes different in terms of how it impacts male veterans. Much of the medical research that is done in Canada and around the world is very much focused on the male anatomy, and so there's more research coming out every day, and we are accessing that research, and so that is one component. We are also at the very early stages of going through the GBA Plus analysis process in order to better serve our female veterans. I will also say that when the Auditor General's report came out, there was a fairly sizable gap between the processing times between male and female veterans. Last fiscal year, we reduced that to 39 weeks for male and 40 weeks for female. And as of year to date, as of September 30th, we have eliminated that gap between male and female veterans, and they are both being processed within the 28-week time frame. We acknowledge that that still is not close to our 16-week turnaround time, but nonetheless, it is progress. We made that progress as a result of standing up a female veteran benefit team responsible for processing only female claims, and we were able to successfully close that gap. And like I said, we continue to update the tools that we use to make our decisions on female claims and ensure that, for example, our table of disabilities, which provides all of the medical information that our decision makers use, includes specific medical research with regards to women veterans. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really surprised to hear your earlier comments about the stressing of, or the, not really the stressing, but, or the importance, but just having the male anatomy be more readily available than ailments that affect women. And you mentioned that there are tools now that are available. Could you just further comment on that?
Yeah, so for example, and I want to clarify that it is the medical research that we use, and how and also how military service affects male and female anatomy can be quite different. For example, if you're carrying a 90-pound rucksack on your back, that might affect a male differently than a female. So I just want to clarify that. And the other thing I would say is that we for example have just recently updated our medical guidance with regards to sexual dysfunction. And so sexual dysfunction often is a result, and we can see it when we're dealing with people who suffer from mental health issues. One of the impacts of those mental health issues is sexual dysfunction. And so we have recently updated our guidance to our staff, our medical research and our medical information, so that they can take that into account for female veterans and how that impacts female veterans versus male veterans. And so we will continue to update the medical guidance that we have so that it is reflective and that there is a GBA plus lens applied to all of the medical information that we use to make our decisions.
Et voilà, merci beaucoup. Le temps.
And that was all the time we had. Now the floor is for Ms. Sinclair de Gagne. You have 2.5 minutes. Thank you very much. I will try to get a short answer when it comes to the time gap between Francophones and Anglophones. Through questions already asked, I have come to understand that it is mainly due to Francophone staff that is available at the department. Is that the reason, Mr. Deputy Minister? Yes, that is true. And we are working hard to hire more French speakers. How long are you keeping these people? Because too many people have left. The number of departures is really shocking. So how will you keep these new French-speaking staff members in the current labor shortage conditions? Well, their work will be clear. There will be clear objectives. And we will make sure that they have a work environment in which they will be happy to work for years to come to do important work. Okay, perfect. So one thing that is worth mentioning, my colleague from the NDP mentioned that there are discrimination cases which are shocking. And it is also interesting to note that at the Veterans Affairs Canada, all examples of possible discrimination are to be found, are present. First Nations, almost non-existent, women, and it is true that their bodies have evolved so much over the recent years that the department doesn't really have the standards to assess what's happening with them. And finally, French speakers. So if we had to resume the situation, the Department of Veterans Affairs is a bit of a laboratory of all the bad experiences that can take place and represents really well the Canadian government and its incapacity of addressing such important questions of serving the people who served their nation. So I will finish on this because it is really very hard to believe, especially the criteria when it comes to physiological differences between men and women, deceiving, to say the least, disappointing, rather, to say the least. And systemic discrimination exists. We have seen this in other studies. Of course, First Nations are the first ones to be discriminated against, but I also have to say that before all witnesses that systemic discrimination against French speakers, against Francophones, is here, will continue to exist until we have more respect for French speakers. Mr. Desjardins, you have the floor for 2 minutes and a half.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank again the witnesses for being present on this very important topic. And I hope that the advice and testimony that we heard today will be taken up, and that we hope that we don't have to return to some of these subjects at the next audit. I want to turn now to staffing. You know, we heard from my colleagues here some considerations about the issues around staffing and the relationship they have to time. So $139.6 million over 2 years was announced in February 2022 to expand the temporary positions, or to extend temporary positions as part of action to reduce the processing times that we're talking about right now. My question is to the Deputy Minister, how many new personnel have been hired? Just a number, please.
So between replacement of those who might have left, as well as new hires, about 150 new staff.
Thank you very much for that. Follow up on that. How much of these new personnel have been permanent hires?
None of the personnel are permanent hires.
None? Zero?
Zero.
Okay. How many of these new positions have been outsourced to private contractors?
On the disability processing, none of these positions.
Thank you very much for that. My last questions will be to the Auditor General's office, considering just following up on the last portion of our conversation about making sure that if there is another audit on some of this, that we can take seriously the condition of Indigenous people in this country and ensure that we go beyond just GBA+. It was clear in your report that you were able to find information related to Francophones and women. There should be comparable evidence for Indigenous people. Will the Auditor General Office commit to a more robust process for ensuring that Indigenous data is followed up with and in your recommendations in the future?
So I think as all the members here in the committee know, I've made many commitments to ensure that all of our audit reports consider equity, diversity, and inclusion. And part of that is to hold the government to account for its commitment to consider gender-based analysis plus in all the work that it does. The comment of the honourable member does not fall on deaf ears. I absolutely am very much committed to ensuring that every voice in Canada is heard. And I will do my best to always ensure that the Indigenous perspective is considered in our reports. You know that it is considered in many that we already do.
And thank you very much. That is the time. I'm, for the sake of equity, I'm going to turn now to Mr. Richards, but only for 2 minutes, and then Ms. Shanahan for a brief 2 minutes, and then we will wrap things up. So, Mr. Richards, you have the floor for 2 minutes, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. In addition to this audit, which showed appalling service levels, in the last just few months, we've had a number of other reports. We had June of 2022, a report of the Veterans Affairs Committee in Parliament condemning all kinds of terrible service standards in Veterans Affairs. We had the Office of the Parliamentary Budget Officer in the end of last month in September, again condemning the terrible service standards in Veterans Affairs. Then we had, of course, the Veterans Ombudsman just last week, same thing. Terrible report card on the service standards we're seeing in Veterans Affairs. These are people who fought and died in some cases for this country. We were talking about their families. We're talking about serving our veterans who've been injured in a duty to this country. And we're talking about situations where in some cases we're seeing sort of a median here from start of application of 48 weeks to get a decision. Some are 2 years or more in order to get a decision. That's completely unacceptable. Service standards haven't been met in 7 years since this government took office. A great example of that is when we talk about mental health services. And in the last year of the previous Conservative government, the standards were being met 16 weeks, 75% of the time. In this last audit, only 41% of the time. Now, I know there's been some argument that applications have gone up, no doubt, but there's also been a huge increase in the number of staff, and yet the job isn't getting done. So I just need to underscore, I can't underscore this more. Veterans serve this country. They deserve our respect. They deserve our care. They deserve our compassion. And what they're getting right now is not that. They're getting an appalling situation. Veterans Affairs, you have to do better.
Thank you very much. That is your time, Mr. Richards. Now turning to Ms. Shanahan. You have the floor for 2 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses that appeared here today, because what I have heard is that this is an evolving situation. We all know that Canadian forces were in Afghanistan. That was wrapping up prior to 2015. But in spite of knowing that, the previous Conservative government cut funding and closed Veterans Affairs offices. So I would like to ask the Deputy Minister, if this government had not invested more than $340 million since that time, where would the wait times be, and where do you see the future trends?
There's no question that the wait times would be far, far worse than they are, and we do acknowledge that we've got more work to do. We are doing that work. We are making progress. But in addition to the investments around the disability processing to ensure that the veterans get the supports they need, there's also been $11 billion in supports directly to veterans since 2015. That's made a huge increase in the lives of those veterans and their families. We see that. We see that every day. And again, we are working hard to make sure that we are working in a timely fashion to get those benefits in place for our veterans. It's tremendously important.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. That concludes this portion of the meeting. I would just like to thank all the witnesses for coming in today, both virtually and in person. I'm going to suspend this meeting just until the clerk returns, and we're going to move immediately into committee business because we have a lot to do, because we hope to see the Auditor General and other folks back very, very soon. So thank you. I'll just suspend very briefly. Very good. Thank you. I appreciate your efficiency, and I'm sorry I had to cut off a few questions. I'm going to try to be a little bit more rigorous. I will always endeavor to give the witnesses the last word, and if you start arguing with them after your time has elapsed, I'm just going to cut it off there because that's extra time. So look, I'm going to try to summarize where we're at, and hopefully in the next 22 minutes we can come to an agreement. So we have some witnesses that will be appearing next week and over the next 2 weeks, taking us to the November recess. So I believe when we last left, we had general but not uniform consensus to look at the hydrogen study, the remote communities. There was a proposal to bring in the Auditor General, officials from Treasury and Finance for a update on the Auditor General's office.
Chair, point of order, sorry.
Yep.
I don't see either Han Dong or Brenda Shanahan present, if I can put it that way.
So where they left. So can you?
Separate link?
No, it's the same. It's the same. That's why. So could you maybe just text them and have them come? I'll talk this through a little bit.
Shanahan says that she's waiting for to be let in.
Yeah.
Could you just text them and have them to come back to the original link and yeah. So. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I won't move too quickly. I'll wait till everyone's back in for fair play. And then, of course, so that was the third. And the fourth one is to bring back the witnesses who we did not get a chance to question on greening the government strategy. So that was kind of where we left things, and then we ran out of time last time. I don't know. I'm going to there. Ms. Shannon's back. Great. And then we'll just and Han hopefully will join us very quickly if he's not on already. So that's where we're at. I've taken the step to begin to slot people in, so because obviously witnesses can't show up immediately, but I do need directions from this committee. So I see Kelly. Okay, hands going up. So Kelly, Natalie, and then Blake. Yes. So Kelly, you have the floor.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just want to follow up on what Mr. Genuis and we were chatting about and ourselves last one about, I believe, the need to have the AG, Treasury Board, and Finance here to talk about resources, what the strike was, because there are some unsettled questions about that I think are very serious about also for future labor relations as they affect the hopefully fully independent Auditor General. So I'd like to see that as a full meeting, and I think I'm fine with that, and I'll just pass over to Blake and Natalie.
Thank you. Okay, Mr.
No, I think that's a good plan for me, and I think that amongst conversation with our colleagues that I think we have a consensus on that, I hope. And I think that one addition is the half day that you mentioned just at the top, that bringing in some of those witnesses, it would be great if we could slot the final hour to study the aquatic species audit.
I'm going to rebuff you on that for two reasons. One, no problem with that, but we do need a little time to discuss the calendar after November. These officials are superb, but we do need a little lead time to set meetings up. So, but you can prioritize that for the post-November recess. Madame Saint-Clair-de-Gagné, vous avez des commentaires?
Ms. Saint-Clair-de-Gagné, you have comments? Exactly the same comments as made by Mr. Desjardins. I think we have a good consensus on the upcoming 3 meetings as well as the last one. With time for committee business, so it's good as is. It's good for me.
Colleagues on the government side for a response if any, to that? Or perhaps there's been discussions and we've gone from general acceptance to agreement.
Yes, we agree.
Ms. Yee, would you mind just taking your mask? Sorry, just
yeah,
it's a little easier.
Yes, we agree, although I do have to point out that the Auditor General did already come in and did substantially already answer many of the questions. However, we see that there is general consensus on your side and our side. But I'd just like to hear, maybe this is going into the calendar. I guess we're dealing with this issue first, right? And then we're going to see where everything is being slotted in terms of the reports and any meetings later. Is that right?
I could certainly try to address that.
Okay.
I mean, this is so far proceeding smoother than I had expected. If there's agreement, I will then begin to share what we have penciled in, because obviously without your agreement, I can not confirm anything, but penciling in the various dates and what's planned prior to the November break. So could I just ask then for, I guess, a verbal just or nodding of heads that yes, we will schedule in, we will confirm these 4 meetings: hydrogen, remote communities, the Auditor General, Treasury Finance update on her office, and then the witnesses for greening the government, as well with and the remainder of that time to dealing with future committee business. Do I have agreement on that? I'm seeing heads. I'm seeing no dissent. So we will declare that done, Mr. Clerk, so we can begin to now double confirm. It looks like, from what we managed to slot in already, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Tuesday, October 25th, will be access to benefits for hard-to-reach populations. And you can, this is not my schedule. This is a schedule that the clerk's recommending based on availability. So I asked them to just begin to reach out to people, see what availability is, because some members are not available. So that's Tuesday, October 25th, access to benefits to hard-to-reach places. October 28th, so a week today, we'll be returning the officials for greening the government strategy. And the last half of that meeting will take a look further down with respect to future business after the November recess. And then November the 1st is what I'm in consultation with the clerk recommending is when we'll have the auditor in, because she is not available on November the 4th. So the auditor will come in on November the 1st with Treasury and Finance officials. And then November the 4th will be the hydrogen report, which I know for some members is a priority, and we will get it in that day for the full 2 hours. So that's the schedule that we have, and we will endeavor to get that out to you ASAP with those dates that are now going from tentative to firm. Good. I see Mr. Genuis has his hand up, and then Ms. Shanahan. So, Mr. Genuis, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of setting up our committee business for post-November, setting up our calendar for following the break, and the discussion that we're going to have about that or that you tentatively said for next week's meeting. From what I understand, we're expecting the public accounts as well as more reports coming up in mid-November, and I think it's important for us to we can have a preliminary discussion about what we can have a preliminary discussion next week about what our business will look like after the break week. But I think we want to be very nimble to be able to respond to if there are new things that come up that are seizing our and or public attention. We should be nimble and prepared to probably just give you the authority to slot some of those in in sort of informal consultation with members. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Genuis. Ms. Shannon, are you on a similar topic, or could I respond to that with maybe an update? But I'm happy to defer to you if you have an issue that is relevant.
Please respond,
okay.
And then I yeah.
Sure. Okay. So, and I'm going to refer to. I might need to refer to ask the analyst for some double confirmation on this, but as I understand it, the Auditor General, just 1 second. Wanting to avoid any censure from the Speaker or the Auditor General's office. So November 15th is the expected tabling of the Auditor General's next series of reports, which will deal with COVID-19 benefits and the review. So that's potentially a day that. And could you just remind me? Do we normally have the auditor in for an in-camera presentation that morning? Or that day?
If she's available.
Okay.
If not, within, hopefully, because they have the press release, they have those press conferences, but as soon as possible after the tabling, we have an in-camera meeting.
And is that during committee hours, or is that a separate kind of?
It's usually during committee
Okay.
hours.
So there's our potentially our first or second meeting right there to begin to get an overview of those reports.
And it doesn't have to be the whole hour.
No, okay, yeah, that's fair enough.
Okay.
And then could one of you just remind me, or all of us, when the public accounts are tabled, what does that trigger right away from this department, from this committee, if anything, in terms of review?
If I may, Chair?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. So the tabling themselves does not sort of prompt, but we typically, as a committee, plan to hold a hearing. There's usually also, with the public accounts, there's usually a training session involving the Canadian Audit and Accountability Foundation, as well as this in-camera meeting will also usually include officials from the Controller General's office and the Auditor General. And there's usually sometimes there's a public and a private hearing. Sometimes there's a public and an in-camera hearing. Sometimes it's just the in-camera. But there's, like I said, there's usually a session. Then there's a full meeting on them. But it happens at the discretion of the committee based on its workload and availability and whatnot.
There you are. So those are some of the answers that, Mr. Genuis, that you're raising in terms of what's coming. I'll turn now to Ms. Shanahan.
Well, thank you, Chair, because that was the question. One of the questions that I had was the actual tabling of the public accounts, which is like our big moment to sort of see. It's like the start of the new season, and to see what work we will be looking at. And so in that line, I am a little concerned what I'm hearing from Mr. Genuis around new things happening. The new thing happening is the tabling of the reports, and we have a way in public accounts to address that. And I welcome the idea that we would invite the Auditor General to see us privately on those reports with officials, and that there be some additional training, as Dylan mentioned, on how we handle those reports, because that is what's different about this committee. Is that on one hand we have the luxury, I would say, of being able to deal with topics that have already received a thorough study, but we need to add our part to it. So what is that? And that is different from what happens in any other committee. But secondly, that, and maybe it's just me, but I feel that this committee is already starting to go down a road which will not just hurt, forget current government and let's score a point here and let's get a headline there. It is the critical importance, the autonomy, the independence of this committee to be able to study the public accounts so that the Canadians have confidence in them. And on that note, Chair, we've been hoping to have that informal lunch. Maybe that's not for right away, but I think that is something important to build on that relationship that we have with the Auditor General. We had sort of first steps with the conference this summer, already looking at some pretty critical issues that we're seeing elsewhere in the country and elsewhere in the world. And I think that is something that we could address, because that's the long-term work that will last for subsequent governments. And I think that my colleagues on the Conservative side, you will be well served by us sticking to our knitting in this committee. And so that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. The points were well received, and now that the committee members have settled in, that the bios are all up to date, and we know our membership, it is on my agenda, literally right there. I was going to mention it, but you beat me to it. To schedule in that encounter, likely lunch, possibly dinner. I will canvass the members to be sure on that, with the Auditor General, to have that discussion about her office and our committee's responsibilities. So I see you, Madame Secretary. I'm going to go Mr. Genuis first, and then I'll come back to you. I will note we do have a hard stop at 3 o'clock because of the stress on the resources. So if you could just keep that in mind, Mr. Genuis, thank you.
Yeah, Chair, just briefly, I think actually Ms. Shanahan and I were saying much the same thing in different words. I just, and maybe this is my ignorance as a new member, but seeing that there were a number of things scheduled for release, I wanted to make sure we weren't planning out an agenda post-break week that did not involve those things. So I agree absolutely. Looking at the public accounts that come out, I don't quite understand, and maybe this is just, again, something I'll get in the briefing, but in terms of having an in-camera meeting as opposed to a public meeting about the public accounts and about the Auditor General's reports. So, I mean, I don't know if that's a given, or it's not totally clear to be the function of that, but you don't have to answer that now. That's maybe something we can follow up on. And then I think the idea of an informal meal is excellent. But I will warn you, Mr. Chair, that being an alumni of the Immigration Committee, Chair Salma Zaid would bring baklava from her riding. So I have a high standard been set. I'm expecting you to bring lobster and other things from Atlantic Canada. So hopefully public accounts is up to the same standard as immigration was.
So sadly for you, Mr. Genuis, it's the Auditor General hosts the reception. If you'd like the meals you're talking about, you'll have to come to my riding anytime, and you're all invited. I know the Liberals just came back from St. Andrews, New Brunswick, and they had a grand old time. Conservatives will have to either come on their own or as a caucus, and the same to the Bloc Québécois. We have Ile Sainte-Croix chez nous. C'est 20 minutes de
Ile Sainte-Croix is just 20 minutes away from my riding, so we had francophone presence to for the building of the country and the region.
And pardon, Madame Sinclair.
Ms. Sinclair Degani, you have the floor. Yes, a very important point I want to make at this point. This meal has to take place in Quebec. Thank you.
I'm open. I'll talk to you about that offline after. And Mr. Genuis, yes, the answer to your question, in camera versus public, it's actually both. This committee is given kind of an early preview, and then everyone comes back for a proper public meeting on these questions. And then, Ms. Shanahan, you have the floor now.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. On this question of why hold an in-camera meeting as opposed to a public meeting, the Auditor General this way is able to talk about certain themes, because we go study by study or report by report or department by department. But with Mr. Ferguson, we were talking about the problem of data collection. Mr. Desjardins hit the nail on the head today on that. And Ms. Sinclair Degani, too, she underlined the importance of data collection. And I remember really well that this was a problem, and we had to, of course, address the circumstances to which Indigenous people are faced with. So higher level, more important fundamental themes were brought up, and we were able to ask right questions in the aftermath. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Any other comments? No. For those wondering, for those who might not have missed this part of history because we don't teach it in our schools, Ile St. Croix is where Samuel Champlain spent his first winter in North America. It is an important point for the history of this country and for le peuple francophone partout en Amérique du Nord.
For this country and for all French-speaking peoples across the world.
Here on Tuesday. Thank you very much. I'm really pleased we got through that.